random things.
Feel free to do that. I don't have any object. I mean, sometimes you need that. Oh wait, are we actually live? Okay, now we're
Yeah,
live. I had to click the button on YouTube.
soundboard lab.
Okay, so just kidding. So we actually weren't live yet. Um, oh wait, were we? Hold on.
No, no.
Yeah, we were. Never mind. It's like it's got a delay, so
No
it's
worries.
gonna play back to everybody from the beginning. Okay, we're good. Oh wow, me
Hey, look, I
too. I just
shaved.
did that. Wait, is my video even on?
No, I cannot see you.
Hmm. 1 second.
No worries.
Okay. Well, it was on earlier. No, it's not. What's up with that? Turn video off. No. Okay. No, we don't want to stop it. NDI, excuse me.
Yeah, the
It's being
soundboard
used by
works.
another application. Weird. Who else is using my application? Okay, well. One day people will see me. I guess it'll have to be next to. Perfect.
That's fun. We have a guest today. All right, come on.
That's great.
Oh, this is so dumb.
Oh my
But I
god.
love it. Wait. All right, and
Awesome.
All right,
Okay.
I swear. Okay.
I'm sure people appreciated that. Oh, look, and we still get to see you up here. Okay. We're totally fine. Oh, I thought you had like a bong or something. That's just coffee. All right.
I mean, I've thought about that so many
Yeah.
times in my life. Like, I think about how many people like do cocaine and like hide it, and how much popularity people get when they just truly show them true selves. Not to say I have cocaine here, but I'm saying like when I see a dude do cocaine, all of a sudden I'm like, that's a real person, And so like they're not trying to hide their identity. They're not trying to play, nice for media or for their family or for whoever. They're just them. And there's something really appreciative in that. I think some of my favorite videos that I do watch of people, are stoners, because they're like, all right, in today's episode of Get High and Talk About Crypto, that's what they
Yep.
do, right? And so no, there's something really special about that. So no, if I had a bong, I'd pull it out. I totally would. But no, I genuinely don't like to get high before talking.
Are you
It's
more of
just not
like a
something I like to
thinker
do.
when you get high? Do you like do less talking?
No, I just get
Yeah, me
sleepy.
too.
It's more like I don't want to do a podcast if I'm high. I'm like, I'm high. I don't want to do that right now. So I on purpose do not smoke if I know I'm going to be doing a podcast or doing a class or something like that. It just comes from being a little pothead in school. You learn, it's probably not best to smoke pot before third
Yeah.
period. Yeah, because
So
you won't
then,
pay too
so
much
then you
attention in
weren't
third
one of
period.
those
So.
people that's like hyper productive on weed. Like I have some friends that will like clean their entire house. They'll do all their homework. Like they'll do all this stuff. They'll do crazy stuff even while they're high.
As much as I mean, I'd love to say that I am. I truly, and I tell the kids this all the time. Like, it's a medicine. I don't use it for fun. Smoke pot when my anxiety's high, and because of weed, I do not have to take any pharmaceutical medications. And so, to me, I'd much rather use it as medicine and just keep it that way. So, no, as much as it is fun, and I get that people like smoke together, fun stuff, but I'm like, no, just a little little medicine here and there, and I'm good to go.
Yep, I agree. I agree. So okay,
Oh,
today's weekly rehash. So something really big happened 2 weeks ago, and to me it's crazy that no one has really talked about it. But okay, so I have my theory.
no, I'm just laughing. I have a theory as to why no one's talking about it, but it's mean. I was just gonna say
Exactly.
because
That's
nobody
no. I was
cares.
gonna say the
But
same
no,
thing. I was gonna say not enough people are gonna talk about it because it's not a big enough crypto anymore. It's just not, it's not doing what people need it to do. As in, it's not a secure cryptocurrency. It's not a good place to store your value if it's so easily defrauded. I mean, if it's so easily hacked, and I mean, this isn't even a hack. That's the thing. It's like this is being able to commit a 51% attack is doable on any cryptocurrency or any crypto.
We
Yeah,
should talk
let's
about what
do
we're
it.
talking about. So we're
Let's
talking
do
about
it.
Bitcoin Cash. What was it? About 2 weeks ago, there was a 51%. And I hate to use the word attack because in this situation, it technically was an attack. That it was using the tool to buy two mining pools to try and get some of those unspent coins for the customers that accidentally put them into a situation that they couldn't get them back. It's in my head, a 51% attack is truly an attack. It's meant to, dismember or destroy or steal in a really big way. And I did a lot of research on this subject over the
Nice.
last, from 2 weeks ago. And one thing I can see is like BTC dot, top, they've gone on record saying, we did this on purpose. We did this, to prevent theft in the first place. So in their defense, not me defending them, but I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
this is how they defended themselves. They were like, yes, this was a long thought out thing. We don't want to make the blockchain immutable. I mean, we want to keep it immutable, but at the same time, if a lot of users are going to lose coins and we have the ability to roll it back a little bit and get those people those coins, as long as it's used in small doses, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But it's when it really does create that 51%. All of a sudden, everybody wants to know more about it, and that's important because there are differences. Like we sometimes I think I have to remember that a 51% attack was coded into the language so that it could be used as a defensive mechanism if need be. So in some ways, you can call it attack, or you can call it a defense, or you can call it a restructuring. But no, it is really, in my humble opinion, I actually did not view this one as
Right.
an attack. Because it wasn't nefarious. It wasn't meant to hurt anybody. And so there was definitely a 51% restructuring, that, but there's rationale behind that. And just like with all things in all spaces, there's people that are going to agree with it and disagree with it. But for purposes of this, the thing that I found the most interesting is really looking at what the long-term negative effects of doing something like this could be, regardless of whether it was
Right.
an attack or not. It shows. I really wish they'd make a new word for presidents because I always end up saying
Oh,
president. It makes a new president, but it
precedent.
makes a new
Precedent. Yep.
precedent, right?
Yep. That's it.
Precedent, right? Because it does. And so if it makes it that easy to just restructure or use that 51% ability, then it really begs the question: is this the coin that I want to have a lot of my money in? Is it really as safe as I think it is? And it's good because it also brings up those questions, which I think a lot of us just become complacent and we don't pay attention anymore, especially if you've been in the space for years and years and years, or you just trust somebody that told you that it's all good. And so that's where the critical thinking really comes into place, being able to look at something like this, see why it happened, how it happened, and really be able to come back a year after the fact and go like, what was the vibe that actually, what did it do in the long term, or did
Right.
it do
Right.
nothing in the long term? So I'm really excited to see what this will really do. And I don't just mean price. Obviously the price will fluctuate based on anything that happens, but in this case, the actual security, being able to upgrade Bitcoin Cash to do something and then take it away and then upgrade it again, bring it back. So honestly, I gotta say, because of this, you could almost argue that they could have done it on purpose to get people like you and me to actually pay attention to it for half a second. So,
Yeah.
so like I know more about Bitcoin Cash than I have in, well, since 2017. You know, they did their job, I guess you could say, and here we are talking about it when
Yeah.
normally we wouldn't
And I,
be.
I think
Um,
it's just a
so
really important lesson in the history of crypto because crypto is still relatively young. It's only as old as Bitcoin is. I mean, everything else that came afterwards was obviously after Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's only got about 10 years under its belt, and all of these other cryptos are just, attempts and secondary, tertiary, and just thousands of bites at the apple trying to make something, interesting or better than Bitcoin or whatever they want to make, whatever kind of unique project they want to make. But these kind of, I mean, this 51% attack we're talking about today is really important because these are all, boo. I,
sorry, that
I
was a
agree.
boo. That
I
was a boo
agree.
for the
I
51%.
agree.
Okay, I won't do it
It's
anymore. I
really good.
promise.
It was good. It was well placed. But yeah, like
Okay.
these are all lessons. So maybe we're not talking about Bitcoin in this episode, but this is actually very much relevant to Bitcoin. Any cryptocurrency that we talk about, I guess this goes without saying, but we'll say it anyway. Any crypto we talk about isn't telling you to go buy it. Definitely do your own due diligence, and before you buy anything or invest any of your money, your well-earned, hard-earned money into anything, please do your due diligence. But this 51% attack is really a deep dive into one of the really hardcore lessons we have to learn about Bitcoin. So Bitcoin isn't the only, or Bitcoin Cash isn't the only crypto that's seen a 51% attack. And it's really interesting because people will bring up a 51% attack that may have happened on Bitcoin a couple of years ago. So I don't know if you heard about this, Alex, but one of the really big and one of the worst bugs in Bitcoin's history was the one where effectively somebody printed like billions of Bitcoins. Billions of additional Bitcoins were printed out of a
Even though there's only 20
yeah,
million.
aside from the 21 million, someone printed a couple billion in a really in a buggy transaction, and it was put into the ledger. It was put into the blockchain, and everyone was like, "Wait a minute, what?" Well, the one guy caught it. So Jeff Garzik, and he's a well-known coder for Bitcoin. So he actually caught it, and he was like, "Guys, this is a really big problem. We have effectively 184 billion more Bitcoins in the blockchain, and that's not good." So what we actually had to do was we had to convince enough miners and people running nodes to basically take us back to a couple of hours, maybe it was days, however long it was right before that transaction happened. But all of the nodes and all of the miners had to agree to go back to that point. So a lot of people, no one lost money in a sense because every transaction that you did would have just been undone. So money would have gone back to you. But obviously, if anybody had money sent to them, that money would go back to the original sender, and that original sender would have had to have been asked, "Hey, please send me back that Bitcoin that you agreed to send me." And so I
Hmm.
bring that up. I bring that Bitcoin bug up because there's always going to be issues that happen. But I think something that's really important to study in all of these events is how they resolve the issue, and whether it's one person, or in this BCH or in this Bitcoin Cash example, this was two mining pools. This was two big mining pools that had to do, or that committed to the 51% attack to redo everything until a certain point in the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. Whereas the Bitcoin bug that happened, that required a monumental effort. That required everybody to agree to do to go back in time, basically, for the Bitcoin blockchain. So it's just two very different approaches to this problem. I mean, obviously, a bug creating 184 billion is bad, and so is the attack that required these two, or that led these two mining pools to commit the 51% attack. But what do you think, Alex? Do you agree that there's something to be said about how the resolution is reached, like from only two parties versus the entire community having to come together and make the fix work?
Okay, so this is kind of fun. You know how much I normally talk major crap about, government and how we make rules and laws. And over the last couple of years, when people started freaking out that the government was going to make regulations for cryptocurrency, I was actually one of the, I think, rare people that was like, no, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. And the reason it's a good thing to me is, to answer your question with
Sure, sure.
not a question, but it's simply this. You know, it goes back to what is safe to hold. And when I think of Bitcoin Cash right now, I think that the governance, what is legal, what is illegal, what is right, what is moral, what is ethical, all of that needs to be summed up so that an investor, a holder, like if you're going to use a type of currency, especially in this time, now that we can actually choose and we can look at the rules of said currencies, right? You as a educated or non-educated holder of anything should be able to, get a clear-cut basis of what is allowed and what isn't, regardless
Right.
of morals and ethics, right? Because that's kind of the fun and also kind of the point of crypto is that we can refine that depending on what we want it to be. And nothing is great for everyone. So, what some people find unethical or wrong, other people will be like, that's what I want in my currency, right? So it really just stems to the point of I want that, not necessarily regulation, but I can't think of a better word for it right now. And not through government, but through the actual creators and People who hold up the blockchains, people who are really using it, running it, making sure that it works, all that stuff needs to be locked in. And now, of course, with the ability to, audit and change, edit later on. But at the very least, this is something, this 51% blockchain reorganization or attack, depending on how you want to look at it. I think right now is a really good time for them to say, we're going to allow it or we're not going to allow it. Now, by doing this, they allowed it, right? And so that's where that new precedence comes in. So right now, here I am, just a regular investor thinking, all right, so this is not immutable. This can be changed. They're willing to, get the large, pools together, and maybe 5-10 years down the road, if Bitcoin Cash is still even around, maybe it's 3 or 4, but that ability exists. And by not demonizing it, but also, not saying, this is how it's going to go forward. Really, I still feel like it's in a state of flux. And that scares me as an investor. I'm not going to put any money into Bitcoin Cash, not knowing what, I don't know. It's everything. The core value, the rules are really of this coin, this individual coin that we're discussing right now, Bitcoin Cash. Bcash. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. No, but so no, and that's really what this makes me think about a lot more, is that we need those concrete rules, so that as an investor we know. And a lot of that it's upsetting because that sort of stuff should be ironed out in the white paper and the yellow paper and the pink paper, in all those papers before anyone is even allowed, let alone able to, fuck allowance, but able to invest, right? And so that's makes me sad that it is in a state of flux, that we don't know what what is it immutable or is it not? That's huge. In fact, that's like one of the biggest things of anything in our space. And we don't know. We don't know. It's supposed to be, but it's not. But are they going to do it again? Right. And so we don't know. So it's not answering your question with a question, but that's what it really makes me think about, is as far as an answer and a fix, because it's not going to fix. Again, it may turn off a lot of people if they say we're never going to do this again. But it might also turn off a lot of people if they say we're going to do this anytime we need to. There is no right answer. There's no wrong answer. But I want an answer. And I think everyone deserves an answer. It's very much like you're paying taxes, but you don't know where your taxes are going. Right? So I don't want to use this money unless I absolutely know how this money is going to be handled. So and that's really what we're talking about. Let me just
get a word in really quick, because it's really important to what you were saying. So governance, the governance structure is what you were looking for. That's the term, because and it's, I mean, we talk about it so much, like you've been educating people on Bitcoin for so long, but it's funny that we go back to an old concept of governance. Like, what is governance? Like, governance is such a universal concept. How we've been organizing ourselves as humans for millennia. So for as long as humans have had brains and have been able to organize themselves, we want to have the most commonsensical, healthy governance structure. And by that I mean, like, who makes the rules? Like, when you're born, who decides for you what you get to do? Like, is it fair? Like, do you feel slighted by it? Do you agree with it? So governance is everything. So we want, first and foremost, I mean, obviously the current government we have now, it's funny, but when it was first created, it was revolutionary, because the assumption, like the very first rule, was that each human being in the U.S., in the United States, was had their own autonomy and had their own freedom. So freedom was the baseline. That was like the very beginning. So why do I bring up this governance structure and why talk about all this stuff? Well, it's because what Alex was talking about earlier. It's one of the most important things before you invest in any cryptocurrency is to understand the governance structure. So Alex was referring to the white paper. And one thing is the white paper, but obviously the other thing, which is more important, is the actual code. So the what's happening on the back end of the cryptocurrency. So if the governance structure allows for attacks to happen more easily, then you might want to think, twice before investing in it. And it's, Bitcoin isn't the most perfect thing out there, but Bitcoin isn't by any means the most perfect cryptocurrency. But for now, it's been the most resilient to these 51% attacks. And I guess, Alex, I'll let you finish your thought, and then I'll get into another point I wanted to make here.
Oh no, no, I'm ready for the next one. That's really so that's what I came to at the conclusion of after like really kind of deep diving. I always ask, what am I interested in? Depending on who you're talking to, everybody cares about something, different. A lot of people care about transaction fees. A lot of people care about price. A lot of people care about this. And like I've been on record 1,000 times, I do not care what the price is. I do not care what the fee is. I am looking for a store of value. So really, that Bitcoin Cash was never something that I was interested in investing in, and now it's even less because like if I'm going to put my money into a currency or a stock or a bond or anything, like I want to know 100% it's all there for me to go back to if I have a question. Everything's set in stone, and there's something really special about that I think we take for granted in our old, systems. Now we complain about it a lot too. I'm like, oh, why don't they audit these laws more often? Like why can't I shoot a buffalo from the second story window with a gun in Texas? I can do it from a third, but not a first because that's a rule from the
Yeah.
1800s that they haven't changed. And it's just, and that doesn't really matter. But that's how ridiculous and how much I'm like, we need to change things. But you first have to make things concrete before you can ever start to change. And so it's crazy to me that there's no, I'm just blanking on the word, but there's nothing really holding it all together. It very much seems like depending on the time, the date, whatever's going on, we're constantly putting
Right.
band-aids on things, and those band-aids. I'm going to use an example from The Flash. Yes, that's right. DC's The Flash. For those of you that don't know, everything was fine. He took on the reverse, Flash. He took on Zoom. Everything's happy. Everything's wonderful. And then he decides to go back in time, save his mom, and live with his mom, who died when he was 11. Long story short, he messes everything up, changes the timeline. Everything goes crazy. You cannot fix those mistakes, right? So putting a band-aid on something generally means that later on down the road, you're going to have to put another band-aid and another band-aid and another band-aid.
Yep.
So I think it's just I'm going to stop harping on this point, but it really is important to get the ground rules down before you go forward with anything, especially when you're dealing with people's money.
No, exactly. It's the most important thing. I mean, with this whole experiment of cryptocurrencies, we are effectively removing all other institutions from the mechanisms and the tool of money. So money has always been with us, but we've always been relying on more and more people to handle it for us. But now that we're doing it ourselves with cryptocurrency, or rather leaving it up to an indifferent, a mechanical, and we should call it like a blind system. We can't just allow certain people on a whim to decide to change things, because this. So you said it right. Like the first, like when you explained the attack, and you explained what was the reason for it. Yeah, these two actors were acting to the benefit of the community. But if they could that easily mess with the system, with the network, for a good reason, what's stopping two other parties from acting, nefariously for their own means? And it that
And I know it always comes down to just
yeah,
one bad actor, just one. That's all it takes. One person not in the right mind doing something, and that's it. It's all gone. So, we think about the actors right now, the people that are, in charge of those mining pools, and they might have the best of intentions. Let's say this goes on for another 30 years. Obviously, they will change, right? There, people move down, people move up. But that's one thing that we definitely cannot ever know in any space is, are we always going to have the right human in the right job to make sure that everything goes right? That's what
exactly.
worries me. So, I always say AI and computers are scary, but they also prevent humans from making human mistakes.
Yeah, they try. They definitely try.
They
And
try.
that's
They try.
and precisely that's precisely the case. Like that's exactly what happened here. I mean, the code tries to prevent 51% attacks. But I think I do need to make a quick point here. I was gonna make another point, but I'll make this additional point, which is really important. So why was anyone able to actually commit a 51% attack against Bitcoin Cash's network? Unlike, we have the Bitcoin network, and why aren't people trying to attack that one? Well, the truth here is the Bitcoin Cash proof of work is exactly the same as the Bitcoin network's proof of work. So something very important to keep in mind is that we have we only have so many resources on this planet. I mean, we're the only ones anywhere even around our solar system from what we know. So everything that's on this planet is all that we have to mine any cryptocurrency. So if two different blockchains are using the exact same proof of work, what that should tell you, playing the game theory concept, is that inevitably one of them is going to be mined on more than the others, because the more one is mined on, the more secure it is. The more secure it is, the more valuable it is. The more valuable it is, the more the market is willing to pay for it. So, playing each peg, putting each peg up there on the line of reason, we get to the inevitable conclusion of Bitcoin being worth what it is now, which is, let me quickly see, $7,821. Bitcoin Cash is worth $398. And it's not because Bitcoin Cash is that much different from Bitcoin as far as the coding goes. Like, it's literally a copy paste. But it's because over time, the hashing power, the overall network, the overall community, behind both networks, Bitcoin's network has been accumulating more coding behind it, or rather more patches, more people putting work into it, and obviously more mining power has gone into it. So over time, that secures the network, and that makes it more valuable, which it's like a positive feedback loop. So the more miners are willing to work on Bitcoin, the more they'll be compensated for it. If a miner jumps ship and goes to Bitcoin Cash, he's only going to get so much money for that. And obviously, if it's so easy to game the network where you can hop on and hop off and get like magnitudes of more money from it, what it serves to do is more destabilize the network than actually solidify it. That's not the best word, but yeah.
I was trying to do something funny. I tried to share my screen. I don't know if it came
I
up. I
see
still
you
see
too.
myself, but I went to Texas Highway, sorry, txhighway.com. The one where it visualizes the
Mm-hmm.
transactions for Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. It was created by
Huh.
Bitcoin Cash, and when it was created, it looked good. But if you go there anytime, right, like right now, I'm watching it. I've had it on for about a minute and a half, and I have not seen one car on the Bitcoin Cash highway. All the while, all these little cars going down the Bitcoin highway, and so it really
Oh
is
my
funny to
God, are you
me.
serious?
They built this. Oh yeah, go to
Okay, let's see if we can show the
txhighway.com, and
viewers
you'll see
here.
exactly.
TX Highway.
Yeah, it says my screen is shared, but I don't
I
see
see
it.
it now.
But oh, well, good. But yeah, as you can see, and this goes, I know I brought this up because this goes exactly what you were saying, right? They're both on the same algorithm, SHA-256. They are fighting each other, not just market wise and marketing wise, but also,
Yeah.
for dominance. And you can see at the very least on this example which one is being used more than the other. And so,
This
that's
is
very telling.
hilarious. Oh my God.
And also,
What are the
you can also see that all the things where it says your ad here, btc.com, bitcoin.com, bitzillions, all of these are like extremely
Yeah.
Bitcoin Cash related things. So I just think it's funny. It really is like an echo
Oh
chamber.
my God. What is up with the
But yeah,
so there's different cars on the Bitcoin. Are those like SegWit
right.
transactions, like the faster ones, or?
No, no, no. So if you, where is it? There's a little, okay, so on the top
Yeah.
left, if you click the car, you'll see that each a motorcycle is $0 to $10, a
I
tiny
was
car is
right.
$10 to $1,000, and each thing means something else. So like a big truck is a whale sending $1 million. You have, all these
I
different
was
cars
right
mean
though.
different things.
The little race car means it's a SegWit transaction. So those are actually faster and cheaper.
Oh, you're right.
That's neat.
Segwit TX, yes,
Very
you're
neat.
right.
That's awesome. So that's really hilarious. But that's so okay. I hate to bring up Roger Ver again, but I'm gonna have to do it. He debated Tone Vase recently, and he was touting Bitcoin Cash having super low transaction fees, and this is why no one's using it. Of course, the fees are gonna be low.
Yes.
Imagine if Bitcoin Cash started to have the same transaction traffic as Bitcoin, then obviously the transaction fees would go up. It's such a silly argument that he made, and I mean, this isn't the episode for that, but I mean, we're talking about Bitcoin Cash, so I might as well throw that in there. Um, the transaction
Fair
fees are
enough.
low because no one's using it. Bitcoin at one point had super low fees because there's very few people using it, It's common sense, guys. That's what's going on here.
I always thought it was really interesting because I remember when Bitcoin Cash forked, it was all about, the megabyte, block size debate. And I think at the time they went to
Mm-hmm.
8 megabytes. Is that correct? And if you look at it now, they have 32
Jeez.
megabytes. So there's 32 lanes, but still no one's using them. So my question, I guess it really begs down. I'd love to talk to Roger Ver, or at least the developers of Bitcoin Cash and go and just really ask him. I'm like, why would you go from 8 to 32 when you weren't even using eight?
It's
So it's why not spend your time working on something else? I know that there's a lot of issues with SegWit and blah 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 blah.
it's
No,
just so funny because
uh,
it's so hilarious because looking at it in that like that representation on the screen that you have is exactly the problem that we have in the Texas freeway system. We think like our the people that are controlling and determining like our infrastructure for our roads and our cities, they think the solution to dealing with car congestion is making bigger roads. But that's not how you fix the issue. You fix the problem by making other, more effective, efficient, and cheaper ways to move people around the state. Obviously, I'm referring to trains. We could so easily, I mean, using subterranean train. Like people are like, "Oh, we can't use there's not enough space on the surface and all this stuff." Well, then use the ground, guys. Like do what Elon's doing and use the like figure out other ways to scale. So Bitcoin Cash is failing here by showing us that they're using old ways of scaling, whereas Bitcoin is using secondary is using this what do we call it? Like the Lightning Network. I forgot the technical term for it, but we're using other ways to try scaling as opposed to doing it on the ground floor, like making highways bigger and then having to make them bigger like just 2 years later. Like it doesn't it seems like any highway that I've driven through in Texas is always in reconstruction. It seems like we never have them big enough or as wide as they should be. It's just an old way of fixing things. It's just funny to me.
it's true. It's true. And there was one last thing I wanted to say, and it's something I've been reading a lot in the news lately. Everybody's, oh, Bitcoin's up, Bitcoin's down, bear market this, blah, blah, blah. And the one thing that I do read a lot, and at first I was kind of angry about it, but I do actually kind of believe it. There was an article that I read yesterday, and it simply stated that Bitcoin will not be hyper valuable. Now, hyper, that can mean anything, but when I think of hyper, I mean like, over 50,000, 100,000 per, unless the global economy is
Hmm.
really, really hurting. And you know what? For 5, 6 years that we've been doing this now, that's exactly where my mind's been. I believe we will get there in my time. Otherwise, I wouldn't invest in Bitcoin because I do agree with that. If there was no need for Bitcoin, it wouldn't exist. If there wasn't a need for a new system, for some changes into the old
Mm-hmm.
system, none of this would exist. But no, no, it was really, really telling because I think for the longest time, a lot of investors have had this mindset of I have to get all this Bitcoin as quickly as possible, because something could happen at any time. And it really made me, and as you know, if you listen to last week's episode, I talked about loaning a large amount of money and I have less Bitcoin than I did have, and I was kind of sad about that. But reading this article made me realize that the small amount of Bitcoin that I do have would be enough if Bitcoin was really, truly
Yeah.
important in that moment. Now, not to say that Bitcoin's not important.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
know
yeah.
what I mean when I say that, Andy, of course. But it's not as important as it will be when things get really, really
Right.
bad. Once things really start to
It's
pop off, once like value, resources and things, when we really are hitting that resource war where it's actually
right.
affecting
I mean,
everyone,
we've
when water becomes less and blah 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 blah, that's when it'll really matter. So anyway, I just wanted to touch on that for a second because I think it's really important for me as a teacher, teaching people for the very first time, and they think that they have to get $10,000 or it's not going to matter in the long run, and I'm always reminding myself and others that it's not about how much you have. You don't have to have 100 Bitcoin. It's
right.
insurance. It's another way. It's something. It's a way to keep your money in a safe place. And so that goes back to the whole Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, which one's going to win, which one's the better hold. Should you just go 50-50? If you're going to have one Bitcoin, should you have one Bitcoin Cash? Well, hold on, Bitcoin's $7,800. I can't afford that. Maybe I should just get one Bitcoin Cash. And that's
No,
really not the way
no.
you should think about it at all. So once again, and I like to say this in every episode if I remember, but it's not about how much you have. It's about slow growth, just like earning your retirement fund over the course of 40 years and being able to put a little
Yep.
bit in a 501k every month. It's the same thing. If you can just hodl away, hold away $5, $10 worth of Bitcoin every month, when shit really hits the fan, if what all of us Bitcoiners think will happen eventually, I think the whole world, almost every religion in the world believes it'll happen, right? It's Armageddon of some type. That's when having other resources other than fiat capital will really be important. So yeah, on that note, just don't be greedy, because it's not about greed. It's about insurance. It's about having a different ability, a different choice. Being able to move your money when you really need it to, when things go really bad and banks don't work anymore. And that's what really excites me about it, is not that I'm better than everybody else that uses a bank when the time comes, but that I will actually be able to help people, because I will still have the ability to move money, and hopefully show them a way to, get out of fiat before it's too late. Because I really do believe it'll be kind of like a week-long process. All of a sudden it'll be worth something, and all of a sudden it'll be worth less, a lot less. So that'll be a really incredible
Yeah,
week.
couple of
Could be 20 years from now, could be 50 years from now. I hope I'm alive when it happens. It'd be really interesting to watch. Uh, and I don't mean that in like
yeah.
a doomsday way. I don't think everyone's going to die at all. I want to be there to help with that process, because that's
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
how I
and I
foresee it.
think I think
Call
those
me.
the change can be gradual or it could be immediate. I think it's going to be a kind of a mixture of the two. I mean, the fact that Bitcoin is even worth more than $1 is super telling, because of the way that, because just the nature behind money, the nature behind value. So one of the reasons why Bitcoin, I realized over time, would be so important is because, again, and I mean, I've harped on this enough, but Bitcoin has solved a money problem that we've had issues with for ages, and it hasn't been broken. And that last part is really important. I'm not saying it's unbreakable, but it's just, as time goes on, it becomes more and more resilient to attacks. And this is why the price that it commands now is just a smidgen. It's just a drop in the bucket compared to what it could. And something really interesting to consider is the fact that we still have newspapers, but do you ever buy a newspaper? And I think we're gonna think about fiat currencies the exact same way. So your whole
I don't even know how to get rid of them. Like I know because you lived with me for 3 years, but still every day, 5 days a week, I wake up, I go outside, and some dude somewhere threw a
yeah.
newspaper in my lawn, and I have to always recycle it. I don't know how to cancel it. I don't want them. It's just I feel bad, because I'm like, well, there's a
Yeah.
lot of wasted trees. I mean, I've probably thrown away a good
Yeah.
1,200 newspapers, over the last 5 years, and that's ridiculous. But no, that's kind of my point, right? We don't want it. It's still there. We can't get
Right.
rid of it.
But it's not. But
Fiat.
that's the but therein lies the rub. I mean, which one is worth more? So online presence for news is hyper valuable compared to a newspaper, which hardly anyone ever buys anymore. It's just not. It's not efficient. It's just not the best way to do things, considering the technology that we have now. And that's what leads us to Bitcoin's value proposition here. And I mean, like Alex was saying, it's I think part of it is going to be the world is going to be hurting, but I think what it's going to be hurting for is a better way of doing things. And it really just comes to that. The more and more people realize there's a better way to move value. There's a way that doesn't require you to sell your soul in any way. And what I mean by that, it doesn't require you to give away any information. It doesn't require you to be of a certain race. It doesn't require you to live within a certain border, be a certain age, be a certain demographic. It doesn't care about any of that. It's completely borderless, and that's extremely powerful. That's extremely valuable, and it's going to be more from that end. I think from that angle. Not so much that the world's going to shit, but the more and more people are going to realize, hey, the old way of doing things is shitty. we need something better. We need something that actually works, and Bitcoin is going to be there to fill in that void. So all of the value that's currently in financial instruments that are just old and useless, not obviously they serve a purpose, but they only serve the purpose for very few people. All of that value from this old way of doing things, from those older financial instruments, it's all going to come pouring into Bitcoin, or at least that's what we think may happen, or if not, a better alternative to Bitcoin. But it's definitely going to be crypto.
If I may, I want to throw a kind of a thought bubble at you. Something I've been thinking about a lot lately is, over the last year and a half, we all know Facebook has had its ups and downs. Well, its downs and more downs and some more downs, to be quite frank. And, it's something where, personally, I am so tired.
Uh-oh. We lost Alex. We lost Skype. All right, we'll get him back, I promise. Maybe his computer died, maybe... Not sure what happened, but we'll figure it out. All right, you're back.
Worries.
What happened?
No,
Okay.
I don't know. All of a sudden, it just started beeping at me. But no.
Yep, you're back.
Are we still good?
Finish your thought,
right.
Yeah.
So basic thought experiment. And I thought, we talk about finance all the time because that's what this is. But so Christy and I were discussing how valuable it would be to use tokenization, some sort of cryptocurrency. We know that Facebook is probably going to make a cryptocurrency, blah, blah, blah. But I would love to see a max exodus from Facebook to a social network site that actually, follows some basic principles. Don't sell my data. Don't do this. Don't do that.
Yep, I'm
you
here.
Still there? All right, cool. So really, it's time, right? So in the next 2-3 years, we're going to have new already existing social networks that really start to challenge this, Facebook, yeah. Twitter narrative. And I think they'll do that by basically incentivizing people through posting to where you earn, and we see this in certain things like Minds.com, where they actually do have a cryptocurrency token. There was a social network thing called Bitlanders a couple years ago. I think it still exists. That would just give you a little bit of Bitcoin every single time you did something. Obviously, there's Steemit, and they give you Steem based on how many upvotes you get. But I would just love to see something where you could actually maintain a presence on a social network, and actually, specifically for countries that don't have the same abilities as America, you could actually make a real living out of that. But it would it would do all the wonderful things that social networks don't do. We talk about, what was it, 2 weeks ago, that Democrat, the Nancy Pelosi, that Facebook scandal where they slowed her down, and then Facebook was like, we're not going to delete that. Now, I get it. I think it's important to let art be art, and you can say it's not art, but in a way it is. I don't like it, but at the same time, I accept it. But I would love it if there was a social network that didn't allow that, that said, you know what, this is hurtful, this is wrong, this is going to do damage in more ways than just poking a joke at someone, and, really having those morals and ethics as a social network. So why do I say all this? It's because if this happens, if a social network that is based on ethics, morals, and cryptocurrency and incentivization can beat out Facebook or Twitter over the next couple of years, then I think very, very much that we can correlate that to take a look at the financial system, right? Because it's a social system, financial system, right. Two completely different things. Same technology, quote unquote, attacking the established, community, the established financial community, the established social network community, and showing not only that there's a better way, but it can be better for the individuals instead of the corporation, the company, or be utilized for evil within 15 years, which, when you really break it down, I think that's kind of what's happening. Facebook is just a tool. It's not evil. It's not good. It's not bad. Yep. It's not anything. But it's a tool, just like how, we complain guns kill people. Well, no, it's a dude holding it with bad intentions. Same thing. Facebook is just a tool. We're holding it. It's being used for bad. And I can only imagine we will never be able to know how much it has influenced us to believe things that aren't true, how much it has manipulated people to think, the wrong things. Sometimes, I joke, but I'm like, how many flat earthers would there be if Facebook didn't exist. I'm pretty sure it'd be like very slim, and if in the ones that did exist, they would die
Yeah,
with that
probably.
idea in their head. Not to say that if you're a flat earther, you're wrong. I don't know. I just I don't think that's
I
true.
know it's not true. We have
Uh,
plenty of proof.
I want to be respectful.
We
I want to
have
be
plenty
respectful.
of proof it's not true.
I do. I truly do.
Uh,
Because if you look at like certain mythologies and stuff, what I like to call
mm-hmm.
religions from the
Yeah,
past,
yeah.
like they believed in flat Earth too. They believed in all these different realms, up and above and below and behind. So maybe they're not wrong, but no, I wanted to
No,
comment on that
that
for just a second.
I'm gonna posit something to you here. So on the social network concept, you made one of the things that you're hoping for is that we don't do immoral things on the social platforms. And I think it's a really tough tightrope to walk because what you think is okay to be said because of you know, the I think one of the fundamental right the
Freedom of speech.
fundamental necessity to have freedom of speech that could be easily uh, perverted, and then we have all sorts of disgusting things that get thrown out there. I think what this platform may do to curb that, or to at least de-incentivize it or disincentivize it, is you just won't get you won't get paid for it. So very few people are going to be willing to fund um, fraud and false statements and what's not the truth. And people are going to be I hope my my hope in humanity is that people are going to be putting more money towards what's actually true, the truth and facts and things that actually bring harmony and obviously bring value. And very, very few people are going to be putting money towards lies, deception, corruption. So I bring it on. Part of me wants to say, let it happen, let it come in, but it's going to be a waste of their time. I mean, they're going to do it anyway. I mean, you and I know that if people are going to try to do bad things, let them do it anyway. Let them waste their breath, waste their time, waste their energy, and get nothing to show for it. And this is why, I mean, happy to always turn things back into Bitcoin, but the reason why Bitcoin is still succeeding is because it you can attack it as much as you want. There is nothing in the code that says you can't attack it. The truth is just there is so much more incentive to play fair, to play ball and mine it, as opposed to trying to attack it, because there's going to be nothing in it for you if you try to attack it. So far, it's been resilient to attacks, and it's been more it's more lucrative, and it benefits you more to play ball, to actually help the community, to validate transactions as opposed to try to destroy them. So, yeah, that incentive scheme, I think that incentive scheme is crucial to making it to where the governance structure as a whole, like the fundamental governance structure, if you want that to work, you need to set the incentives from the start to be beneficial, or to be making it conducive to playing fair, to playing nicely, and to bringing value, as opposed to being destructive.
Which kind of brings us back to the whole point that we wanted to make on this one
Mm-hmm.
about Bitcoin Cash is, be fair, be open, and, kind of it's sad that it became news before everybody knew about it, meaning it's attack, whatever you want to call it, it should have been discussed with the whole of the community, like pushed ahead of
Right.
time. And if they were going to do it, it's one of those things where it should have been known ahead of time before it was just done. And not so people could weigh in or vote, but just for openness and transparency. It's sad that people find out through news as opposed to just finding out through the company itself. Because when you really break it down, Bitcoin Cash is a
Yeah.
company. So it's well, that's the other thing. Depending on what country your company's in, you can follow certain rules and get away with stuff. So as much as we're like, why didn't you disclose things? They're like, we don't have
Yeah. It's
to. And that's an acceptable answer, sadly, but
right, and I
it's true.
consider it a company just because of there's so few people working on it, and they're just like there's so few people working on it. They're paid by a company, or at least very few people are funding the work on Bitcoin Cash, and very few people are actually mining it. So yeah, I consider it more of a company than an open sourced endeavor. But and I hate to do this, but I'm gonna have to kick Ethereum in the in the stomach as well, because one of the things that they did in the past is very similar to what happened with Bitcoin Cash. So Ethereum when the DAO happened, which is a very big.
Decentralized
Right,
autonomous
right, right. So
organization,
the okay,
otherwise
I
known
guess
as.
yeah. Let me add some context to that. So the DAO was a project to create a decentralized autonomous organization, and what that would have allowed for was I mean I thought the concept was brilliant, and I think that's ultimately what we're working towards with cryptocurrency in general, or at least that's one of the like we'd want to branch off and make these projects the norm with crypto, and it's one of the things that crypto would allow for, but this project, specifically built on Ethereum, failed because the coding behind it allowed for uh, anyone, whoever figured it out, to go in and essentially siphon off millions of dollars. All the money that got put into the DAO was siphoned out by a nefarious actor. So he ran off with apparently, what was it, like $70 million and change. So what did Ethereum do to fix this? And I mean, clearly it's a really touchy subject because a lot of people would want to do what Ethereum did and go back on that transaction, so undo it. The only issue here that I have with how it went down is that very few people actually had a say on undoing the transaction. So I didn't know this. I found out after reading up on this, but actually Ethereum has been 70% pre-mined. So only 30% of the tokens that are out in circulation belong to the, are we're openly distributed, we're fairly, let's just say, yeah, fairly markedly distributed to the entire world. The rest of the 70% of Ethereum that are in circulation still belong in the hands of the creators. So that's a 70-30 split between the entire network's like cryptocurrency. And what did that allow was that allowed for the reversal of that DAO hack. It allowed it to occur because that 70% was owned by the majority, or no, the majority of coins were owned by the minority, and that minority of developers all agreed to undo that transaction. And the way that they framed it was, hey, we're gonna have a vote. The entire network is gonna vote to undo the transaction, and majority vote wins. But what I didn't know is that those developers actually already had the majority in their pocket. And another thing I didn't realize was that the majority of the devs actually invested in the DAO to begin with. So what they were undoing was a mistake that they had some stake in. So it I mean, obviously, I'm painting a bad picture here, but I mean, the truth is, if the network itself, if the governance structure itself allows for this kind of underhanded, backroom dealing, you have to be very careful with where you put your money. And so we've talked about Bitcoin Cash, and now I've brought up Ethereum because it is very important to understand how the governance is actually handled. Bitcoin's it's not perfect either, but the more people that's required to go in and undo transactions and essentially rework the network, the better. So always consider that. The more people that's required, that means the more messy it's got to be, the more difficult, and maybe the less likely it's going to happen. But that's good. You want more people to be required to make decisions that will affect you long term, as opposed to less people. And now we get to bring in our U.S. government into this, but the whole election that happened 3 years ago, that also came down to very few people deciding the outcome of our entire future. We're not necessarily voting. We're not necessarily our government isn't necessarily run on a majority vote wins. It's actually on the super delegates to decide. And yeah, that's not conducive to a strong government or strong governance structure. So yeah, that was this episode in a nutshell, was governance structures and their failures.
Hey, wait. I want to talk
Sure.
about one last thing, and it actually has to do with Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. So you
Mhm.
brought up the fork, right? And both Ethereum and Ethereum Classic have been running since that fork. Obviously, like Ethereum has been, price-wise, like $250 today, give or take. Ethereum Classic has always been a lot
Mm.
less. I'm looking at it right now. It's,
Yeah.
$8.16. I'll be honest. I have Ethereum. I sold most of it to buy other things, but I do still have a little. And because I don't have very much, I don't pay attention to it like I used to. But when you were talking, I brought up Ethereum Classic and Ethereum, and something that I noticed, and I know that we both know that Ethereum wants to go proof of stake. I don't want to get into all that because that's going to make the podcast a lot longer. But the one thing that I did notice looking at both of these is if you go to Ethereum Classic, you are absolutely right. And I didn't even know that, even though I invested in Ethereum like the day of, as we were there. But I'm looking at the circulating supply versus the max supply, and of Ethereum Classic, only 110 million Ethereum Classic are out, with 210 million as the max supply, which means, of course, that there's almost half, or 100 million ETC that still has to be mined using proof of work. However, Ethereum is switching to proof of stake, or keeps trying gets pushed back, blah, blah, blah. What I'm really trying to push is go to Ethereum and look for the max supply, and it no longer exists. And so that scares me a little bit as an Ethereum holder, although I know, again, this actually kind of goes back to what I was saying at first. It's write those rules down and stick with them, right? Because here we are, like if you were an Ethereum holder since the beginning, which technically I am, it's because of all the constant change and ideas. And that's can be dangerous. Too many ideas, too many switches can lead to someone that invested in something 4 or 5 years ago to go, what the hell has this become? Now, this isn't me trying to at all attack Ethereum. It works. I actually quite enjoy Ethereum. Not as much as others, but that's not the point. The point is, right now, as an investor, as somebody wants to put my money into something that will work for me, that's a scary proposition, is that I don't know. And so this is just coin market cap. I bet if we went into the Bitcoin talk and other things, we could find a little bit more information on it. But again, just from a basic investor standpoint, if I was teaching somebody and I was trying to educate someone on market cap and circulating supply and max supply, this would confuse me. I'd be like, whoa, Ethereum, what are you up to? What's this max supply situation that we're doing? We both know, and I don't want to confuse the listeners, but of course, Ethereum has to technically be able to always build more Ethereum because Ethereum is used, right? That's how it's used. But no, it's just an interesting proposal, because between the two, you see one has a max supply and one doesn't. And for an investor, without knowing all the ins and outs and spending probably 2 or 3 days researching, I would actually look at Ethereum Classic and go, well, $8 and it has a max supply. That's a much better investment than the $250 coin that I have no idea how many they're going to make. But again, I only bring that up because it really does go back to the whole Bitcoin Cash. What are they going to do in the future? Are they going to allow this to happen? And so really, I hate to say it 1,000 times in one podcast, but we need concrete details for every little part of what a coin, currency, technology is going to do. We're not getting it, and we're investing anyway. So I can understand why it's not the priority, because it's still working and it's still making money for the people involved. But I think if we have any chance of really becoming an established thing, and I want to caveat that without fiat totally crashing, right? Wouldn't that be beautiful if they could just coexist together? Everything works, right? And that is a hope for a lot of people, including myself. I don't want fiat to have to burn for this technology to win. I just want to see both, working equally. I think that would be a really beautiful moment in time. But no, so that's really what it comes down to, is we need more concrete literature. We need more concrete rules for the developers themselves, that they can't just willy-nilly change things based on the needs of the developers. And you actually brought that on by saying, I didn't know, but I guess I could assume that DAO hack did, of course, make almost every Ethereum developer probably invested in the DAO. Hell, I wasn't one, and I invested in the DAO, right? So it was the first, right? It was the first real Ethereum token. Everybody invested in that. So you could argue, what was it? What is it called? Fiscal responsibility to revert that, right? You could argue that. But at the same time, now we're about 2.5, 3 years in the future since that ever happened. And it's still an ongoing feud, because we can't say for certain which one was correct and which one was wrong. Or were they both not wrong, right? So anyway, just really interesting, because at the end of the day, we won't know the ramifications of that 51% attack until much later down the road. And the reason I can say that with great certainty is because We still don't know the ramifications of the DAO hack on Ethereum from 2017, which forked and spawned Ethereum Classic, which then broke it into two, and now there's
Yep.
tokens built on both. And it's an epic, wonderful, fun war where
Yeah, it's
nobody's getting
exciting.
killed, right? But that's what it is. It creates just discrepancies. It creates chaos. It creates schisms and breaks communities in half. And that's why if these rules had been set in place in the first place, I think a lot less people would have been hurt. Although maybe those Ethereum founders and the people who invested in the DAO, including myself, wouldn't have gotten that money back. You could almost argue that the price would have gone absolutely much higher than it is today, because it would have had that sense
Yeah,
of safety,
finality.
because people
That
knew
sense of
the rules
finality.
were changed.
Yeah,
Right,
it's
exactly.
really no,
And so
it's
we don't.
fascinating. I mean, we you and I hop on this podcast because it's always really fun to spitball and throw these ideas back and forth. But they have there's something really deep. I mean, I don't want to sound self-aggrandizing here, but it really is philosophizing, because at the end of the day, like Alex was saying, like the Bitcoin, the whole reason why Bitcoin still commands the high price point that it does is because it's really hard to change. If anything is going to be changed, the majority of the community has to agree. That's the difference here between the Ethereum hard fork, the Bitcoin Cash 51% attack that happened 2 weeks ago. It wasn't it's not that it happened, it's how it happened. So Bitcoin is likely going to have its trials and tribulations in the future, where something really messed up happens and we have to do something. Like, we might have to revert transactions, we might have to go in and do something, but it's not that we have to fix something, it's how it's going to be fixed. I think that's always what makes really amazing storytelling. Like, that's what makes for really awesome stories and what makes for really fun TV shows and lessons. It's not that something happened, it's how it happened. And that's what Alex is getting to here. I think that's the heart of his plight here is, if I'm going to invest in a cryptocurrency, make the how very transparent, make it very straightforward, and make it really difficult to change against my favor. And that's what makes
Mhm.
something worth investing in, is making it very sturdy, transparent, um, and obviously effective. But I think those two things are important.
A great example, and I know we got to cut this off soon, but I think back to when we got taken off the gold standard. I don't know who voted for that, right? I certainly didn't. I wasn't alive, but I can tell you now, I would have said, no, please don't mess with my dollar that is tied to a real resource. Please don't do that. Please don't make our dollar technically valueless. But we did it
Yeah.
anyway, and I can almost guarantee. In fact, no, let me take that back. I can't guarantee shit, because the government really confuses me in what they do sometimes, but it is that simple. The government, of all things, should have had things written down so that no one president, no one Congress, no one 4-year term, no one could have taken this money based on gold and basically taken all the value on it, started quantitative easing, started all this stuff that has put us in the plight that we are now. It's absolutely irrehensible. I said that word wrong. It is ridiculous that you can see how much money our government is in debt. And again, it goes back
Right.
to how
Right.
we did it. I think how we did it was really dark. But at the time, I don't think anybody could have foreseen like how dark it truly
Yeah.
could get. And that's where one small change can absolutely influence the entire world. So and I'll say this one last piece. At the same time, in the first couple years of any good technology, as much as we can, demonize and attack certain things and certain players, like everybody for the most part hates Roger Ver. And I'm not a fan either anymore. But I will say this: no one, not a single person alive, can say that he's wrong yet. We just don't know. We can definitely say with 95% sure he's wrong, but he might be the rightest one of all,
Yeah.
right? And
No.
and again, I'm not trying to like give him credit. I'm just saying nobody truly knows, and it's really good that we can get these hard stops, these 51% attacks, all these theoretical ideas and problems, and actually create them, deal with them, and keep those documented for the future, so that we don't make
Exactly.
those mistakes again. So with every negative thing that happens, we have to remember that we're learning. No one's
Yeah.
perfect. Like Bitcoin
They're not
developers are
gods.
not.
No.
I mean, they're
Yeah.
geniuses in their own rate,
No.
right? But they're not gods. All just men. We're trying our best. And so we have to give each other a little bit of leeway to make those
Yeah.
mistakes every once in a while, because we just don't know we just don't know how it will
Right.
reverberate
No,
through
it's
time.
it's yeah. I think we can end the episode. That was a great note to end it on. I'll just put up my piece and then we'll sign off here. But I yeah, there is no certain. I don't have any certainty. Like I don't know for sure whether Bitcoin will never break or anything bad will ever happen. But it's like Alex said. It comes down to the how we fix it. And the most important thing is that it's fair, that it's honest. Um, and yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. Alex, thank you so much for hopping on with me for this hour. I think we did great. We'll keep doing this. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This is Alex.
Help control the pet
Oh,
population. Keep
yes,
your pets
please,
spayed or
please
neutered.
spay and neuter your pets. It's very. Oh, that's awesome.
um, and last thing, and I actually wanted to bring this up every week, only because in the last month I've actually made about $30 mining cryptocurrency on my regular computer that doesn't have even the best video card. So I really want to do an episode on this in the upcoming days. But if you're still listening right now, check out CUDO Miner. That's Kudo Miner, and with it you can basically download it quickly on any computer and start allowing your CPU and GPU to make a small amount of Bitcoin for yourself. Depending on the GPU you have, you could potentially make anywhere from $15 a month to maybe a penny. It just depends. But if you're looking to get into cryptocurrency, if you've never tried mining and you want to be safe about it and use your own devices and not rely on others, a really cool way is Kudo Miner.
Awesome. A shout out to
All
Kudo.
right, that's all.
Kudos to you guys.
Kudo.
Well, thank you, Alex. Alex Eden and Andy Gonzalez signing off. June 5th, 2019. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Be Libre.